Greetings, Commanders, and welcome to the Season 7 Galactic Battle Finals Recap Video Special Episode. This episode of news is going to be covering the Season 7 final events, everything that happened, so that when we look at the next season, we know exactly how this last season ended. And boy, was it interesting. All right, let's get right into it. First things first is that the competitors was FBI versus NYC. FBI is most famous for having 66 and ODAD, the first Chinese player to hit 1 billion power and the first English player to hit 1 billion power in one guild. They also had an 800 million power player, Hope, and they were squaring off against NYC, who's most famous for having GAN. GAN has a 960 million, basically 1 billion power account, with Hot Wheels as his backup. Hot Wheels is a 600 million account, but noticeably smaller. So FBI is the larger guild with the larger commanders and armies, but that's no slouch. GAN does have the right commanders to counter anyone his size. So the problem was he was outnumbered kind of 3-1, but Hot Wheels is no joke. 660 million powers gives you a max research, max leadership commander with tier 12. So GAN wasn't alone. The point of the matchup, we did live stream the matchup. Me and Deranged, he helped co-host a 7-hour stream. Shout out to everyone who stuck around for that crazy long stream. But it was a great stream. If you want to just sit down, relax, and listen to a long Galactic Battle stream, it was actually pretty good. Best one we've done yet. But it was 7 hours long. And of course, Galactic Battles are 12 hours long. So all the posturing and positioning that occurred in the first 7 hours was mostly Ranger battles. A few mistakes were made. And then a villainous Char jumped into the world scene, the world chat, and started giving locations of players that they'd been zeroing on their server. So Char had intimate knowledge of the players on NYC's side because they are civil war. So once 7 hours lapsed, FBI got the opportunity, because of what Char was telling him, to jump across the battlefield, gold jumping. Basically, before all this happening, it was basically just back and forth battles. Odad and Anne and, at least 10 other people were venturing into the enemy fog, drawing in battles, but it was all Ranger battles, no major shifts of power. Both teams were relying on their residual points just from their 22 ships being on their own side, catching those points every 10 minutes. And it was pretty close all the way the first 6 hours, but FBI was starting to inch ahead. And then when they got the info to start gold jumping, and they were able to successfully find a ship that had not enough Rangers. So here's the first screenshots. I did get these live on the live stream as well. It looks like it was about 6:20 or 6:11 at this guy's time when they were able to successfully land the hit and score 2 million points, which at that time there was only like 6 million points in the game from residual points, so that 2 million points made up 30% of the total points. 10 minutes later, they were able to successfully find that ship again and hit them really hard. Look at how many tier 2 and tier 3 that is. I think that's another 20 million points there. Another hit that we didn't see. And this one was pretty massive as well, a bunch of tier 3 and then everything up to tier 10. So at this point, AXR or NYC had pretty much lost the lead by 60 million points, and that's at the 7-hour mark. So that's when things really, for us as the live streamers and this is at like 4 a.m, we had to turn it off. It had been too long. We had to go to bed. We were assuming at that point that FBI had a 60 million point lead. All they had to do was just sit back and wait for NYC to come to them. The defenders have the advantage. It should have been in the bag. We ended the live stream thinking that FBI had the game won. Of course, that's not what happened. With 5 hours left in the Galactic Battle, NYC was behind by 60 million points. So GAN and a few other people decide to gold jump across the battlefield and start basically zeroing other ships, trying to get that point lead back. The other ships were cleared fast enough, but apparently GAN was stationed with his own Fullmetal. And FBI 66, for seemingly no reason at all, full marched his elf into GAN's Fullmetal while GAN was clearing FBI ships in the back, and he caught him. So the first replay. Now, for those of you that don't know, I am now a Fullmetal main. The reason I'm a Fullmetal main is because Fullmetal can do amazing things to defense commanders, including Rogers, Elf, and Reinhardt. And he's not great against everyone else. But 60 million points isn't that much when you compare what happens when two max leadership, max armies clash. Here's the replay. Fullmetal versus Elf, tier 12. Elf, Fullmetal's build is actually going to be a defense build because he's tier 12, right? So he's going to be relying on guaranteed hit. At the tier 12 research meta and dodge meta, regular hits typically don't land, so you have to land a guaranteed hit. So Gant's Fullmetal runs Taurus, Gemini, Leo, and Cassiopeia to avoid being debuffed. He buffs himself with immunity. Fullmetal's other skill, Steam Cannon, removes your opponent's buff. So essentially what Fullmetal does is he debuffs him. He debuffs his opponents from allowing them to buff themselves, or removes their buffs, and then he buffs himself to make himself immune from debuffs, essentially making him the perfect anti-skill commander. Of course, he doesn't have a guaranteed hit, and he doesn't hit very hard. He's not totally bad, though, because his primary skill is the Infantry Awakening. Of course, he's a Walker commander, so he has a Walker Awakening, so he's blowing up the front row, he's blowing up the back row, he just has to land hits. But like I said, tier 12 does have a lot of dodge. So he's going to be relying on those gems to land those hits and those tear space damages he's using, or the tear space damage from the HP gear he's using. So tank build Fullmetal with guaranteed hit gems and immunity against a standard boss tank elf build, which is exactly what Fullmetal counters, especially like this. And of course, Gan, one of the smarter players in the game, one of the biggest players in the game, knew that. And when Gan was gold jumping around, he had his Fullmetal defending himself, and for whatever reason, 66 foolishly marched him. We don't know if it was a mistake, or if it was 66 just false marching him, or if it was just 10 hours, 9 hours into the Galactic battle and he made a mistake. But that's what it came down to. A mistake was made, he got caught by Gan's Fullmetal, and the point shifted dramatically in NYC's favor. So here's the matchup. It's quite a long one. It's probably a 20-30 minute replay. Fullmetal will win this, but kind of wanted to get some just attacks back and forth so people kind of see the dynamic of how this matchup works. It's very slow, very long. Typically, Elf is relying on her curse to deal damage and her heal to heal herself so she can keep surviving. But with Fullmetal's ability to remove her heal and protect himself from her curse, essentially she's a soft commander, a weak commander that doesn't hit very hard like Rogers when he can't go immune. So he basically shuts him down. I'm going to fast forward to the end here. You can kind of see what's happening. Fullmetal's really not getting hit. Okay, so here we are 5 minutes in the future, and the real issue here, or I'm sorry, 10 minutes in the future, and the real issue here is that you can see that Fullmetal has not taken much damage at all. As far as I can tell, I've only seen Elf trigger Cassiopeia and Virgo. Her main issue, and same with Rogers, if you don't have a way to land a guaranteed hit on Fullmetal, he's just going to keep dodging you, especially with high tier. So it looks like Elf was relying on her curse, which is a guaranteed hit, to do damage. But as I stated before, he debuffs himself, or he protects himself with Cassiopeia. So some damage is done to Fullmetal, but not a tremendous amount of damage. So a couple curses got off, but nothing compared to the overall sustained damage. He's basically outscoring her like 90 to 10 or 95 to 5 or something like that. So he's slowly working her down, step by step, turn by turn. It's a long battle. They're not doing a lot of damage to each other, but ultimately, the guaranteed hits of Fullmetal and the lack of ability for Elf to keep healing herself, and she does occasionally catch a few heals, really just breaks her down. So there he goes. He gets through that first row, and after that first row goes down, now he's able to do twice as much damage per round because there isn't her troops triggering and healing and cursing him. So we'll go ahead and fast forward to this. Then the last three fall a lot quicker, all the way to the end. But major issue here is probably that Elf isn't wearing 66's best gear. She didn't have any guaranteed hit gems. And Fullmetal made quick work of her. I mean, I think Fullmetal still would have won this fight, even if she did have guaranteed hit gems. But it wouldn't have been as convincing. So, huge heads-up play by Gan there to be able to get his team back the point lead. So this is where it gets interesting into this long recap. At this point, NYC has taken back the lead. And you expect that FBI knows that they have like less than 3 hours now to either make up the hundreds of millions of points they lost in this battle, or basically give up. So, of course, after 10 hours or 11 hours or 9 hours of fighting, FBI goes on the offense. So 66 and ODAD make a run for the fort. Now, Odad ends up holding down the fort, garrisoning himself with his allies, and they start making attacks on NYC's main base. Here are some of the screen grabs of that. You can really see they weren't messing around. Odad's Elf, 66's Vega, Hope's Gilly, and then NYC started attacking back. They had Hot Wheels, Gan, and Male God? Yeah. So Vega, Stella, Fullmetal. I mean, really, that's the tale of the season. Vega, Elf, Gilly, Stella, Fullmetal. I'm not a huge fan of Stella, but anyway, not the time or place for that. At this point, FBI was doing a pretty good job of holding down the fort. I don't know how long they successfully held it for, but it got to the point where the leadership was having trouble communicating with the rest of the players. And at this point, because they were so far behind in points, they weren't asking anyone to send weenie marches or small soldiers. Only senior soldiers, only tier 11 plus or advanced tier or higher. They were going for the base. They wanted to win it in the next 2 hours before the match ended. Unfortunately, they didn't win enough battles. They kept getting cleared. And when that happened, they got locked out. They sent too many marches, and there's that 15-minute lockdown. If you don't win enough fights out of 60, you get locked out for 15 minutes. That mechanic didn't used to mean as much, but now with the ability to uproot a Roger simply by using Fullmetal, that's coming into play more often. Bosses are having to garrison strongholds and kind of keep their smaller players at bay so they don't lose as many fights. But at a certain point during this attack on NYC, FBI actually got the point lead back by a couple $100 million. But because there was so much going on and there was a communication failure, NYC was able to take the point lead back and ended up making FBI time out by having too many failed losses. So there was a tiny window where FBI could have taken the point lead back, went back to their base, and just waited for NYC to come back and make a mistake, but they missed the window. They got locked out, and then when the lockout happened, it was at 2 hours and 6 minutes remaining. They knew, NYC knew that FBI could not attack the main base for another 15 minutes. At that time, the timer would have been under 2 hours, so NYC left the battlefield successfully. Not many replays were shared. That's why all I have here is pictures. But that was the end of the battle. NYC, even though they were outgunned, they were disadvantaged by other players from their servers providing information to the enemy, and even though they lost the lead in the last final stretch, they still pulled out the victory. What an amazing performance. Congratulations, NYC. Well, I mean, no doubt that we've always had belief that NYC was one of the best guilds in the game. They've always had super high performance. They have a full guild of 22 ships. They've always made it to at least the top 8. They've used every tactic and strategy in the playoffs to make sure they get a good seed in ranking and good matchups. And even though their boss quit, Male God, they were able to replace him with Hot Wheels and Gan. And the real question is where do we go from here? NYC is definitely a huge powerhouse. FBI is a huge powerhouse. There's still a lot of great guilds out there that are going to compete in Season 8. But now that the meta has shifted strongly kind of to walkers, right? Elf and Fullmetal are really powerful against everyone. Vega's still a problem for both of them. But, even Elf does okay against Vega. So, congratulations once again to NYC. Thanks, everyone, for sending me this information. Thanks for hanging out on the live stream. I would have loved to have done this video with more information, more pictures, more content, and in person, in live stream with an audience. That would have been a lot better. But the channel's growing. I don't know what's in store for Season 8, but Season 7 was better than Season 6, and Season 6 was better than Season 5. So we're going to keep going on this trajectory and hopefully set up something big for Season 8. Now we have a paid promotion through YouTube. We have a Patreon. If people want to pour money into the Ark of War channel, I'm willing to use it to build this thing. So if you want to get involved with that, check out the Patreon in the description below. Get your sweet Founders mug. And help me hit that goal of 20 so we can green screen these things so I'm not sitting here inside of a picture frame. So thanks for all the intel provided. Special shout out to Blackbird from FBI for getting me this information. Also, there's been a couple other members of FBI that have sent me information that have asked to not be named. But I don't know why. You guys, I don't know if FBI is that strict. People want them to know their stories. But, it was a great battle all around. And I can't wait to see what happens in Season 8. So we have an off-season coming up. I have rumors that 66 may be quitting or retiring his account. If that's the case, Godspeed, sir. It's been an honor watching you. Thanks for doing what you've done for our game. I don't know who's going to take over his account or if he's just going to take off some time. We'll find out more about that in the future on future news segments. I'll let you guys know. If anyone else is truly quitting in the offseason, let us know. But don't get too discouraged, guys. Players quit at the end of every season. These seasons take a lot out of people, including money, and they get replaced by new up-and-coming players. So we look forward to meeting those players as well. And that's it. I think I've covered what I need to cover, guys. I hope you enjoyed this Melt News segment, and I'm glad to have been able to provide it for you guys because I like these segments. I'm going to look back on this video. So hello to me in the future when Season 8 comes around to find out exactly what happened back in the finals of Season 7. That's it. Good night.